Interviews, news, and analysis of the day's global events with Basil Valentine on today's News Talk, TNT.
And welcome back to the program. 310 to Yuma was made in 2007. I believe it's a remake. That's where I know the name from. But I've got another reason to know it today because it's where I'm joined from by Nelson Balido. Nelson, welcome to the program. You're at Yuma Airport, I believe.
That's correct, Basil. Thank you for having me. Just landed, a little delayed, but we're here right on the border, southwest Arizona, and grand old Yuma, ready to get busy with 112 degrees.
Yeah, so I gather, I believe it's the 100th consecutive day of temperatures of 100 degrees, which is really saying something. I must admit, I don't envy you. Now, I gather you have a diverse background in government, politics, private industry, and non-profit areas, and are one of the leading authorities on the US border for trade, travel, energy, and security issues. We've had a number of guests on the program highlighting the issue of child trafficking, which, you know, for all that the uncontrolled immigration presents all sorts of problems all over the country. Surely child trafficking is the worst of it. A trade worth more than the drug trade. Is that true, Nelson?
Well, you look at it this way: it's not just child trafficking; it's human trafficking. Because the issue is that if you're smuggling drugs, it may get caught, it may go back, it may get impounded. You never know. What's not going back is almost on a one-way ticket. Is anyone that they bring over the border? It costs between $3,000 to $7,000 per head from Central or South America. If you're coming from Cuba, 17 to 18,000. If you're coming from China or India, it's up to 30 to 35,000 for the entire transportation all the way from home country to our border.
Just hold on 1 second, Nelson. China or India? Well, these are countries with booming populations, but also booming economies. And I'm not crazy about Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India. I'm not all that crazy about Xi Jinping either. But these are thriving societies. They're not war zones. Why are people coming to the United States from those countries?
It's interesting. So, yeah, they are thriving societies to a certain point. These people some of them are looking out for other opportunities. But what consistently is, you're talking, these are military-aged men and women that you kind of wonder their background, how they're getting sent here, what's their real motives. A lot of the times we don't know because we don't have a relationship with these countries to understand who's coming or really share any type of data on the background of many of these individuals that arrive at our border, and to the tune of tens of thousands have arrived over the last 3 to 4 years and basically get lost in America.
$20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to come from India or China. What's the route? Right. Do they fly to Mexico and then meet the traffickers there and get taken across the border? Surely if you're coming from China and you want to be an illegal, you just fly into JFK and overstay your visa.
Well, that's one way to do it, right? But then we know who you are. A lot of these folks that are crossing over the border, we don't know who they are, only unless they are caught. Remember, about 20% of the people that we know are going over the border are gotaways. So if 100,000 people cross this month, we believe 15 to 20,000 additional people are crossing that what we call gotaways. In other words, we don't know who they are. These people don't want to talk to Border Patrol. They don't want to talk to a Department of Public Safety officer, because normally these folks have some type of background, or they've tied 2 or 3 other times in the past, and they will be sent back. So these other folks are the ones that that are sneaking across. And because we're robbing Peter to pay Paul with so many people on the border, some of our men in green, some of them are men in blue from customs that are helping the men in green, ultimately, we just don't have enough to cover. Technology can help, but we just don't have enough to cover. So we believe 20%, you can add to whatever number that the government tells you, are the folks that are just sneaking on in and we don't know who they are. That's the dangerous individuals, especially those, because we don't know their background at all. And we certainly haven't even registered them as they come in to meet an agent, whether they're crossing the border over the river or they're coming through the CBP One app, which, as you know, there's 1,500 people that we allow through the CBP One app over the ports of entries on a daily basis. So.
Yeah, I mean, it seems extraordinary because the United States can actually be very sticky that if you want to come from Europe, even from your oldest ally, the special relationship, United Kingdom, but if you want a work visa or something, it's a long process, a series of interviews at the United States Embassy. You have to prove that you're very much the man for the job and nobody else can do it. So, it seems that on the one hand, the United States is, holding up a hand saying, wait there before we let you in. And then with the other hand is beckoning people forward.
That's an unfortunate thing that's happening. I tell people, if you want to come to this country legally and you want to do it right, we're going to do everything we can to put a stop to that. But if you want to cross the border illegally, you want to make a run for it, we're going to give you a cell phone, we're going to give you a visa, we're going to give you a temporary work permit, and we're going to see you hopefully in court in 3 to 7 years because there's a backlog of which we know that you came to this country. You've said that you wanted to claim asylum because you have credible fear. We know that 85% of the people never show up in court because they don't and cannot prove credible fear. So ultimately, they get lost in America, and there you go. They're working, they're here, they're doing their thing, and they came, they cut in line. So if you want to get in line, that's a tough process, and that's unfortunately what's happening, and that's what this administration has created for us.
Indeed, I know somebody who had a work visa for the United States. She did not overstay its duration. She left the country of her own volition in good time. She then applied for a further visa and was denied that visa on at least 2 occasions for no obvious good reason. So she took matters into her own hands and walked across the border into Texas and is now, as they say, living her best life, as having been given a cell phone along the way. She poses no threat to anybody. I can tell you that much.
Listen, most people just want to cut your lawn. They want to come here for economic opportunity. And then there's that 1.5% that want to cut your head off. That's what we don't know. Right. And because we don't know those things and we can't track these things, that's the dangerous part, especially the gotaways. You mentioned earlier, well, how do they get to this country? When you're coming overseas, absolutely Mexico City, Cancun, it's like the travel agency. They're just leaving, they pack their bags and they head to the southern border of the United States of America. And the problem is it's a one-way ticket. They don't come back. And it is a boon for these cartels, the organized crime, because to your point, it's more lucrative to move people that you don't get back. There is no returns. You're not getting caught, as opposed to moving kilos of marijuana, cocaine, or other types of substances that may get caught in either on the port of entry or in between those ports of entries. So it's way better for them to do it. And the more that we've allowed it, in Mexico has done the same thing in these countries. It's gotten worse. But you got to remember, why is it that these countries don't do more? I'll tell you, if I don't have to house you, if I don't have to feed you, if I don't have to secure you, educate you, transport you, and you're going to come to a foreign country and send money back, $5.4 billion Mexico just last month alone, $5.4 billion. The delta on that is extreme. I mean, I don't have to spend any money on you, and you're going to send money. So the delta is extreme. So why do these countries that are many times are being propped up by remittances back to home countries, why should they put a stop to it? What's the incentive for them to stop them? Because that's an income stream to their country that is undeniably a steady flow and certainly props up many other programs that they're trying to carry out.
No, we don't go in for conspiracy theories on today's news talk, but nevertheless, we do like to examine the facts on the ground. And the facts on the ground are that the sheer numbers coming across the southern border of the United States in particular are causing, irreversible demographic changes to the makeup of the population of the United States. Some people say that's deliberate rather than an accidental byproduct. What do you think? Nelson?
I think you're right. So you're looking at, for example, Colorado that's lost members of Congress because people have left Colorado for because of their liberal laws. So they offer in-state college tuition for an illegal. They offer loans for illegals. So they incentivize people. Now, recently, California just launched a new program that was just voted on. I believe it's on the governor's desk right now, Governor Newsom's desk right now to sign, where they're giving $150,000 loans to illegal aliens that come to California. Again, another state that has lost quite a bit of members of Congress. So they're looking at what happens at the census. Every 10 years, there's a census. And that's how they divvy up the members of Congress based on population, not U.S. citizenship, not the voter. It's the folks, it's population. So if they can amass more people in these states where they have missed, maybe they start getting more members of Congress over there, and then they have more power. So they've lost some power, they're trying to regain. And it's interesting because the ones that are taking the most are the ones that have lost the most. Imagine that. That's where they're going.
Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris say they want to give the vote to all these illegals. Well, surely that's unconstitutional, isn't it, Nelson?
Of course it is. I mean, there was a recent interview just last week with Nancy Pelosi. Says, they were talking about Bill Maher. Asked her, well, these loans in California are for illegals. These are undocumented. And she's like, well, we want to move them to documented. Well, how do you do that if, in fact, they can't prove the very reason that they came to the country? Because first, they lied. Most of them do. Second, they're coached by the cartels and organized crime, so they never get sent back. And third, they don't show up in court. So now they become illegal. Now you have a visa overstay problem. So how do you do that other than just changing the laws, getting more votes, and just basically sideswiping any type of reason that we can have in this country to be able to do the right thing from day one, which we should. Now, we're not against immigration. We're just against illegal immigration. We know that immigration is important. We know that we need to look at other ways we can expand the worker visa program. There's a lot of things this country can do, but the way that's happening and the way we've allowed it to happen, especially over the last 3.5 years, has been a shame, a crying shame.
And of course, at the cold face, the cutting edge of this is the crime wave. Everybody's seen pictures of the Venezuelan gangs taking over apartment blocks in Colorado, and is the sort of central and western part of the United States, as well as the big cities, are they basically now to become just the playing fields for turf wars amongst these various rival gangs, who all seem, may I say, particularly ruthless in the way they deal with their rivals and enemies?
Well, the interesting thing is that gangs or cartels, whatever we want to call them, they're border agnostic. They operate on both sides of the border, wherever. What you happen to see in the Venezuelan video with these apartment takeover that happened last week is you just got one that was caught on video. How many people are not caught on video is the question where this type of stuff happened. I'm going to bet it's 100 to 1. There's 100 times that happens to maybe one that you may catch on video, because that's just the simple numbers and how it works out. Now, I will say that, yes, because we don't know who is coming over, we don't have the background, there's not credit checks that we can run on these people or security checks we can run on many of these people, because these other countries will not give us information. Of course, a lot of these countries have cleaned a lot of their jails up. I mean, I go back to the 1980 Mariel boat lift for Cuba, the Cuban migration crisis in 1980. Fidel Castro emptied his jails. Now, there was a lot of great people that came over as well. I'm not saying there's not, and they've been very successful in the United States, but he emptied his jails just the same way. So these other folks are basically getting rid of their problems, transporting their problems to another location. So they say, okay, you go, and of course they're going to take off. And then ultimately they're going to get caught in the system, because you can't, if you're a criminal, and this is how you've always been, unless you're reformed, in this case they're not, you're going to get caught sooner or later. And that's what's seen. You're seeing that now, and it's certainly getting worse.
My producers tell me you're the founder of the Border Commerce and Security Council. Can you tell our viewers and listeners about that organization?
Sure. So we're a nonprofit organization that we work with issues regarding trade, travel, and security. We have a lot of members, but corporate members nationwide that care about what type of technology we put on the border, and working with Border Patrol, U.S. Customs, DEA, ICE, and others to ensuring that the government is getting best practices, making sure that they have the right technology in place, ensuring that they have a voice, because we can be a voice in Congress, we can be a voice in, like we are today, to advocate for more funds for the Border Patrol, more funds for U.S. Customs, and ensuring that those guys are hailed to the hero status that they all are, because that's what they are. These people are protecting our country day in and day out. They don't get the recognition, in my opinion, in the public environment that they should. So we are here to ensure that they have a voice outside government, to ensure that we are advocating for best practices, technologies, and ensuring that ultimately, everyone comes safe back home every evening.
And where can people find the organization, Nelson?
Right, so bordercouncil.org, or you can follow me on Twitter at Nelson Balido there, or also bordercouncil.org on Twitter. So Border Council, Nelson Balido, or bordercouncil.org on our website. You'll see many of the videos there. You'll see a lot what we do there. Certainly, there's ways to contact us there through there.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Basil Valentine Show today. That's it, folks. That's all we've got time for. I'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Jerome Corsi will be with Jason Burmus in a couple of hours' time. He may reveal more about that algorithm that produces phony mail-in ballots. Stay tuned to find out. I'm Basil Valentine. See you all again at the same time tomorrow. Have a great night.